This show is going to be aired on Valentine's Day. So I'm going to talk about things that I love. My name is Phil, and you're listening to Lit. An episode about things that I love. I can truly tell you that one of the things that I absolutely hate is going to be the Spear of the Week. And I can't wait to talk about it because, boy, I've just been quiet and frustrated and aggravated, and knowing full well that one thing that I truly hate is going to be completely impossible to deal with until September. We'll get into that further as we get into the things that I really, really can't wait to spear. But this episode isn't about that horrible thing that you hate. It's about love. It's Valentine's Day as this show is coming out, so I'm going to talk to you about some things that I really love. Now, everybody can simply say the easy ones and say, oh, wife, kids, all that stuff. I'm going to go into more different things that I love. Because it's apparent that everybody has stuff that they enjoy to do and they love to think about. And, well, I have a lot of things that I've decided that I really do enjoy, to the point where when these situations happen, it really is just the love of the idea of what happened. And I can promise you wholeheartedly that every one of these things that I saw and every one of these situations that has happened that I'm about to talk about in the main event, oh boy, I loved them. Whew. To a point where it's just, I get really excited just thinking about all these things. Just how much I love the things that I'm about to talk to you about. My goodness. All these are activities or things that I've seen or watched or things that I've done, but truly, each one of them has something that I'm very passionate about, and my goodness, love is the only way and the only word that I could use to describe how I feel about each of these things. Now, I do believe that it is time to fill in the blank. And the fill in the blank is going to be somewhat like the last one. And it kind of goes along that same line. The question is, what am I going to fill a whole segment with now that football season is over and I have no more picks? All I have to do is tell you the result and what I did from last week, the Super Bowl, the final pick that I have. What's going to fill that void? What's going to fill in this blank? The answer is, well, a segment that I'm going to find to be really interesting. I'm going to ask, not really a question, but there's going to be three things, and I'm going to try to see if I can figure out what these three things have in common. And maybe it'd be fun if you did it too. Hopefully you enjoy it as much as the picks or some of the other segments I've done over the last couple of years, but I think this one will be fun. Again, the question for the fill in the blanks is, what is going to fill in for my NFL picks? The answer is going to be a series of things that have a similar thing in common. And we're going to figure out if we can identify what that thing is. Just excited about this episode of things that I love. And to make this episode goes so much better than just even having the bell rung. I should actually have, I don't know, maybe Cupid fire an arrow into the bell, and that'll be the way the bell gets rung today, huh? That sounds like a good idea. Mm, it is main event time. Main event time. Where should I begin? On this Valentine's Day that you are going to be listening to this episode on. If not, you'll be listening to it after Valentine's Day. But now, the first thing that I'm going to get into is something relatively old, so I think I'll start there. Because I just enjoyed this scenario so much, and it just brought me so much joy. Pure, unadulterated love from this situation. Goes back to my days working at Wawa as a manager. Of course, I never made it to the very top to manage the entire store, but I was definitely a lower level manager in the store. Had all those managerial responsibilities, was able to make up schedules at times if need be. I was able to cover shifts if I had to with people who were around. I was in charge of the money for the entire shift that I was working, and had the capability of working a shift that was in charge of the entire deposit for the day. I had a lot of responsibilities, and crazy enough, the amount of money that I made during that time is less than what the minimum wage is for New Jersey and Pennsylvania right now. And that's just, like I said, just to start people making like easily 50% more than what I made to be in charge of Wawa's deposit for the day. That's crazy. But that's also another story altogether. But this story does in fact revolve around Wawa, as if nothing else, that company has given me a great deal of material to use on this show. And I gotta just go with it, because this is one of those things that I really loved. I really did. It was probably my first year in management after I came back from being sick. I know that it was then. And a customer comes in, and for whatever reason, the people who I was working with that day did something that aggravated this customer. Unfortunately, it's been so many years, I can't even remember what it was that my employee did that riled up this customer. I can't remember. But that's not the important part. The important part was the customer was exchanging words with my employee for a little while, because one of the things I like to do, it's almost kind of like my parenting style essentially. We let the kids sort of have a little bit of rope, and if they have some trouble, we'll then pull them in. I wanted to see if my employee could handle the situation without having to get me involved. Unfortunately, the customer wasn't going to have it. Whatever that situation was, the customer was really disappointed, really upset. And so at that point, I gave it maybe a minute to see if they could resolve it, and they couldn't. So I walked over to the customer and I said, "You're having some sort of problem, it seemed like. What can I help you with?" And the customer went on and actually explained to me what their situation was. And the problem with that was my employee actually handled the situation correctly. I do remember that. I can't remember what exactly the problem was, but I know for sure that my employee did the right thing, said the right thing, and had actually given the customer the only solution that was allowed to be given. And of course, after hearing the situation that the customer had and hearing what my employee said that they had done, I concurred. I said, "Yeah, there's really not much more we can do for you in this situation. Um, that's really all we can do." And then it happened. Probably the thing that was so sweet, and I didn't even realize how sweet it was going to be until the situation happened. The customer then said, "Okay, clearly neither one of you is going to be able to resolve this issue. I need to speak to the manager on duty." I collected myself, handled it rather professionally, even though on the inside I was laughing like the Joker. Because as soon as she said those words, I instantly got giddy. There's no other word to describe it. I was actually giddy. I was so happy and excited that this customer asked for the manager who was on duty. Now, she didn't ask for the manager of the store. She didn't ask for the person who was just running the shift. She asked for the manager who was on duty. Somebody who was in control and in charge and could actually make decisions on the shift. And it just so happens that one of my responsibilities is just that. I was able to make those decisions. For better or for worse, that was what the end of the day, that was my job, to make decisions regarding customer conflict, employee problems, handle situations, write reports, and let the store manager and the assistant manager know what went on. I was under no obligation to tell this person information to the store manager on their day off because I was the very bottom rung. In order to describe to you the situation of the way Wawa worked, at least when I was there, you had the very lowest person that you could possibly have in the totem pole would have been a miner who worked it. They only worked a short amount of hours. They have virtually no authority whatsoever. They have responsibilities that are given to them, and they have to leave at certain times because they can only work so many hours. The next level is your normal, regular associate, somebody who's above the age of 18, who has no managerial responsibilities, is supposed to take direction, follow orders, and comply with what needs to be done, with whatever the higher up tells them to do. The next level is called a shift runner. That person, their responsibilities are slightly different than your regular associate because they are a regular associate, but given the ability to manage the shift at given times if there is no manager on duty. Their duty is to be able to access the safe and be able to distribute money to the cashier They are able to answer questions to a certain point. They're able to um, check in vendors. They're able to do many things, but they're not able to access inaccessible things like the inaccessible safe where the bulk of the money was at. They're not able to access that. Um, they're not able to make official write-ups. At least they weren't when I was there. You're not allowed to write anybody up. You're able to write down notes and give it to another manager to assess a situation that has been going on with an employee. But they're still just a regular employee, so they don't have that power. Now, the position that I was at was above them. That is that was the first level of management at Wawa, which they've changed. I'm not sure what it is now, but when I got to my initial position, I was customer service leader, which is the first level of management at Wawa at the time. And that was my responsibilities, like I told you prior to that. I was responsible for the safety of all the employees and the customers who came into the building. I was able to check in all the vendors. I was able to put bills in the system, access the inaccessible safe when permitted or necessary. And I had the ability to write up an employee who didn't comply with any orders that I gave them. Also, I had a level of knowledge which was a little higher than the others, so that I could answer a great many more questions that may come up throughout the night if a customer had a situation. And so my smile continued. The customer asked for the manager on duty. And I did my very best not to smile too bigly. I kept it to a low grin. And I said, "Well, ma'am, I'm the manager on duty." She instantaneously closed her mouth, turned around, walked out the door. I'm telling you, if this lady didn't leave as quickly as she did, I would have laughed in her face. Because I just couldn't believe how much fun and excitement and how much I really enjoyed that. The customer was not correct in the situation. Like I said, it's been many years and I can't remember what the exact situation was, but all I remember was the customer was not correct. And we had given the customer the option that they could do. And they wanted somebody who was in charge of that shift, a manager who could represent Wawa at that moment and what we were doing, and that person was me. And she just couldn't take it. The fact that she was wondering who the manager was, and the whole time I was that person. And it just, I loved it. I loved every second of it. I loved every single second of it. And I never heard from that situation again. It was just over. I was done. She was just, she couldn't deal with it. And that was that. Now, we can go to something that's slightly more modern, but not that much more modern. We're talking about something that happened within the last 5 years or so. And it was just really fun to me because it's another thing that I'm very passionate about. I have had Ford vehicles in my life, and unfortunately, those vehicles did not live up to my expectations in any way. I would tell you that the four worst vehicles that were in my possession were Fords, Jeeps, and a Chrysler product. The four worst. and it was two of each. Well, not two of each. Yeah, two of each. Two Fords, two Chrysler products, which is a Jeep and a Dodge. Those did not hold up well. I had a Dodge van that ended up blowing its transmission at 80,000 miles. That was terrible. I had a Jeep Wrangler, which to this day I'm gonna say was the biggest piece of junk that I ever bought. Ever. I mean, it was terrible. Transfer case was no good, the transmission was bad, leaked oil everywhere. It was a piece of junk, and from that day forth, I swore on never, ever, ever buying a Jeep again. And even more so than that, I won't even get into one. Because I feel it's just waiting to be a problem. But the one company that just truly, essentially broke my heart was Ford. Because there was a point where I was a fan. I really was. I wanted an F-150, and this is much younger days. We're talking high school. I was 17, 18. A lot of my friends were on the Ford side, but then I had a few that were General Motors product people, Chevy stuff. And I'm like, yeah, some of that's okay, but I prefer the Ford stuff at that point. And then I got to. Whew. I'm going to describe the one a little later in a story episode coming up, but let's just say it did not go well. And the other one didn't go well either. An old Ranger, small pickup truck. It just was not good. It really wasn't. And the Bronco, that one may be tied for the Jeep. That was a really big problem. And certainly the Jeep was terrible, and the biggest problem with it was, I mean, it had everything I wanted. The Jeep had a 4-inch lift in it. It had at least, I believe there were 38 tires that were on there. Nice big wide dirt tires. And it had both the soft top and the hard top. That was my criteria. I wouldn't want to buy one without both tops, the hard and the soft. And I found it. And I wish I didn't. But back to the Ford, because this is the thing that just made me just feel all warm and fuzzy inside. After those horrible nightmares with the Fords, I was at a point where I wanted nothing to do with Ford. And I ended up having great success with a couple of Camaros and a Monte Carlo. And probably my favorite vehicle ever was either the 85 Z28 with a 4-barrel carburetor and five-speed manual transmission. The first stick I ever drove was that Camaro. And then the other was just my absolute best. It was, I don't know if it was any more fun than the Camaro. It was different. Just like the Monte Carlo, that was awesome too. Loved it. My young dumb days were spent racing that car. 55. But who's counting? And I'm pretty sure any statutory of what do you call it? What's the word for it? Oh, they wouldn't be able to prosecute me for street racing at this point. The statute, the limitate, I don't even know what it is, whatever it is. The ability for them to prosecute me is over, so just keep that quiet. I'll just say that. It was young and dumb days. But the Avalanche, 1500 Avalanche, magnificent vehicle. The only reason why I got rid of it was because I was only getting 13 miles to the gallon, and I had just gotten the job at the prison, and 13 miles to the gallon on a 45-minute to an hour and 15-minute trip. I just said, no, cut it. So I had to downsize. But here's the thing I loved and just really, really enjoyed. Couldn't have asked for better. One day, I was driving up 95 North on my way home. And I saw this fairly smallish trailer, and it had a truck on it that I could see as it was moving up. As I got closer to it, I saw that there were two trucks on this trailer, and they were just being towed. And I was like, oh, looked a little closer when I got a little closer to it, and it was two F-150s on this trailer being towed. And I continued to advance a little bit, and I got next to the vehicle that was towing them, and I took a look at the vehicle that was towing them. It wasn't like a giant tow truck that you would see, a flatbed. It wasn't a car carrier. No, it was just a regular flat trailer, and it had these two F-150s on it, and it was just being towed by a pickup truck. I thought that was pretty interesting. And as I got close enough, I looked and I saw the most beautiful symbol in the world. And if I had a dash cam, I would have done everything in my power to go viral with that video. As a Chevy guy, what I saw was the epitome of Chevy fun stuff. Because the vehicle that was towing those two Silverados was a 2500. No, not Silverado. The two F-150s was a 2500 Silverado. A Chevy truck was pulling two Fords on a trailer. I can't begin to tell you how much I love looking at that. I was like, boy, yep, that's exactly right. Yep, the Chevy truck was pulling two F-150s because they couldn't drive. They broke down, pieces of junk, and it required a real truck to pull them. And boy, that made my month. Not my day, not my week, but it made my month to see that. It just kept warm feelings in my heart. And like I said, if I had a dash cam at that moment, man, that absolutely would have been on YouTube, Facebook, heck, anywhere I could put it up there. I'd have just made stick figures driving the Silverado, pulling those things, and I'd have pasted it on the windowsill, just because that was just such a great moment for Chevy trucks for me. And I mean, it just brought a tear to my eye just about how much I enjoyed watching that. I just truly was passionate about Chevy trucks, and I still am. And to have seen that was just one of those things that I couldn't have dreamed up something like that. Just couldn't have. It was better than I could have imagined. Really was. Absolutely to this day, one of my favorite things to think about. Boy, where are we gonna go from there? That was pretty good. Um, I'll go back to high school. This is one that I really love too because everybody knows that in sports, sometimes a team or a player just has the number of another team or another player. They just got them. No matter what they may try, no matter how hard they may play, for a certain period of time, you've just got that person, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Just nothing. It's just what it is, and there is no in between. There's nothing. It's just that person or that team cannot beat that other person or that other team. While the coaches are there, the players, just something about that situation for that to never work. It just doesn't. And I'll even use an example, and it's long since been broken, but there was a point in time where my old high school, Southern Regional in New Jersey, just couldn't beat Brick in high school football. It was like 40 years. It was a long time until we finally broke through long after I graduated, probably 10 years after I graduated before Southern finally beat them. And we're talking, like I said, it was like 40 years that my high school couldn't get over Brick. Just couldn't. It was forever. They just never. And the only thing that they never did, which was always my favorite part about it, was they were never stupid enough to make the Brick game the homecoming game if they were at home. Never did it. Because Brick always won. Always. For like 40 years. Until we finally cracked through and beat them. Now, that wasn't the thing of beauty that I was talking about. The thing that just put warm feelings in my heart wasn't about Brick. It was about another team in Ocean County that had become a unique opponent for me personally. As I was a shot putter and discus thrower, I may have mentioned that, for Southern Regional in New Jersey from 7th grade all the way until I graduated. I was captain for 3 years, my sophomore year until my senior year. And realistically, 8th grade, I was kind of a captain there too. But this is kind of an interesting story because I had never really competed against this school very often because of the makeup of how the Toms River schools were, which to this day still seems a little odd to me. There was a middle school of Toms River North and a middle school of Toms River East and a middle school of Toms River West. But there was a high school. Now pay attention here. Toms River North, Toms River East, and Toms River South. See where we're getting at. There was no West High School and there was no South Middle School. That's just the way it worked. So in 7th and 8th grade, I never experienced a competition against South. But when I got to high school, here they are. Now, my freshman year, my sophomore year, my sophomore year? Yeah, my freshman year, sophomore year, I really didn't pay much attention to Toms River South because they had a guy named Hanson, and he was throwing way farther than I was. I admittedly, especially at that younger age, freshman and sophomore year, I was not in his level anywhere close. And even in his junior year, he was even better still. In my junior year, he was even beyond superior. He ended up throwing 55 or 56, 56, 56 in shot put, really good discus thrower. And we're going to focus on shot put here specifically. This guy was really good, and in high school in New Jersey, there are 3 major tournaments. There is your county's tournament, and there's 21 counties, and each had their tournament. And our tournament was at my high school. Hanson from Tom River South blew it out. Just killed it. He was throwing 56. And this is in my junior year. And he was so ridiculously good that it was just easy, like to the point where the regular meet came up and he was there and I was competing as the best thrower for Southern at the time. My best throw at that time was like 44. So he could beat me with a standing throw without even trying. So Tom River South said to themselves, you know what? We have other guys who are at Phil's level. We'll send them to go beat him. Because we're not going to send our big guy out there who's going to go compete for the short conference, in which he did, and which is the second level tournament, which had two different conferences, two different counties, and the short conference was a strong one, which is Ocean County and Monmouth County, and he was our best thrower in the county. He had a crazy foul at the very end where he threw 60 feet in his last throw, and it just wasn't enough because he fouled. And a guy, I believe his name was Hubbard, I can't remember where he was from, but he threw 57 and beat Hanson by a foot and some change. If he had had that big throw, he'd have won it. Would have been a real shot at the state championship too. But that's enough of Hanson. He is not my focus here. My focus is one of those guys that Tom River South sent to go against me because they thought that those guys could beat me. They sent me Victor Lau. Victor Lau came up against me for the very first time. It was at his home. It was at Tom River South. And it turns out that I'm a very particular thrower. I am real picky with the surface. There's certain surfaces, there's certain schools that I really liked throwing at, and I'm very fortunate that Southern was one of those schools that I enjoyed the surface. I felt that I could really glide real well on the concrete for the shot put and the discus. And it just so happens that Tom River South felt almost as comfortable, if not equal, to my home Southern throwing circle. It felt real comfortable. And this was the first time that I ever threw there. And I was excited because next to being at Southern, this is the place that I felt most comfortable throwing. And here comes Victor Lau. He's expected to beat me. And sure enough, he takes his first throw and he throws 43. His second throw is like 44. Now we're going to stop there because my first throw was 45. I had him beat. My second throw was 45. I still had him beat. Before he took his third throw, the coach for Tom's River South was really upset, and he went and got somebody who was just a little bit better than Victor. And that guy was just a hair better than I was at the moment. And he threw 46 and was able to beat me. But Victor never got past 45. I beat him. Then, of all things, because I had that second knee surgery in my senior year, and I wanted to wrestle, but it was told that I really shouldn't, so I didn't wrestle in my senior year. But my knee was good enough for me to do winter track if all I could do was throw shot put. And so that's what I did. I threw shot put. And wouldn't you know who showed up at my first winter track meet? Good old Tom's River South, featuring Victor Lau, who expected to beat me. I show up, he throws 44 again. And then he's like really excited, he throws 45. I had his number. That day I threw 46. Beat him again. Now that kid that they stuck out, that real ringer, he showed up real quick and he threw 46 and some change, a little bit farther than I did. So I only got the second place. The guy above Lau got, he won it. And I'll never forget, I didn't even move up to the podium because I wasn't really sure what was going on. I was just sort of relaxing. And I remember seeing Lau pouting on the side with his third place, where I had beaten him. And he was super upset. But I did it again. I beat him again. Then finally, we're going to go to the Ocean County Championship. I don't know if I've told that story. I'm going to have to tell it in detail because it's a fun story. It really is. And I really think that it's a story that needs to be told in on its own because it was good. It was a really good story, and it was really built up over the 4 years of the class of 96, that 96 Ocean County Championship. It was a story that was really built up over that time, and I'll have to tell it. But here we are at that tournament at Southern, so I'm home because we hosted the Ocean County Championship every year when I was in high school. And without giving away the full story, I had to make an emergency comeback. I was hurt, and I had to run and get my ticket and go, and because I had missed 2 weeks of the season, and I had gotten cleared that day to come back and throw, because this was the goal that I had set for myself all year long, to medal at the Ocean County Championship. Now, at this point, I had just made it, and I'd given my ticket to the ref, and I was ready to go. My distance of 46 feet held up strong enough where I was part of the seeded heat, which meant that I was in the first group of throwers because I was one of the best throwers in the county. I'm going to put my little pat myself in the back, and my shoulder was letting me. The way it worked is there was going to be 4 heats, and pretty typically the 4 heats had about, I think it was 15 people per heat, and it went based on how far you threw, and the seeded heat was the best heat. The 3 below us were guys who weren't going to get the throw just to get the throw. The people who were going to get the medals were in the seeded heat. And in the counties, in New Jersey, there were 6 medals that were given out um, in each event. But there were only 8 slots in the finals. So what you had to do was 8. Yeah, it was 8. Mm-hmm. 8 in the final heat, in the finals. And I had gotten there, and Victor Lau, yet again, Tom River South, he was feeling good about himself. He's like, I'm going to get to the final, and I'm going to win myself a medal. And he was feeling great. But like I said, I had just come back, and I was cleared. And here I come, running onto the field, like Willis Reed, if anybody knows their Knicks basketball. Look it up if you don't. It's fantastic. That's kind of what happened. That's why I said this whole thing was great. And I'm going to have to tell the whole story. But like I said, I come running up like Willis Reed, hand my ticket to the ref. Lau takes one look at me, and it looked like he was in need of Pepto-Bismol. But he was like, doesn't matter. I'm still better than Phil. I'm still better than Henderson. I can take him. This is where Skip Bayless has mentioned a thing with certain athletes, and he called it the clutch gene. I may not have been the best thrower in the world, but of course, everybody knows that what clutch means is when you're at the very brink of what you need to do, that's when the best comes out. At the very end. Those quarterbacks who get those comebacks at the end of the game, that's what they do. I, in 8th grade, was able to pin a kid from Manchester named Ben Marshall in a regular season wrestling match with seconds left. At the end of the match, I was able to pin him. Turned out that kid ended up winning the county championship at the time. But it was a clutch victory, and I was the only person who beat him that entire season. And so here it comes again. I've thrown my first 2 throws, and Lau is ahead of me by about 5 or 6 inches. He's thrown 44 and 45, and I throw 44 and 45. We're close. But now it's that last throw. My last throw. What did I do? I pulled out another 46. That clutch gene activated. And I defeated Victor Lau one more time. It was far enough in order to put me in the 6th place where I was in the medals, and I got one. And Victor, again, was beaten by me. I had his number. I just did. Whenever we competed, head-to-head, in the same heat, I beat him. Every time. Every time. Now, to make this story more interesting, I wish I could make it more interesting, but realistically, this is a fact of what happened, and I'm just gonna go with it because this is what my cousin saw after I had beaten Victor. His coach saw him and started yelling at him and smacked him in the back of the head. He's like, I can't believe that you let this guy beat you again and again and again. But I mean, it is what it is. I had his number. What was he gonna do? Nothing. He wasn't gonna do anything except for lose. It's just what happened. I had his number. I'm sure that there was people who, if I really thought about it, well, in fact I can. The kid from Point Borough that I wrestled in 8th grade, he beat me twice. He just had my number. He had me. He beat me in a regular season match, and he beat me in the semifinals in the county championship, where he went on to lose to Marshall, who I had beaten, and he won second. I got third. Marshall won it. But Victor didn't have my number, and I was able to beat him again and again and again. And I just love the fact that I actually knew that when I saw him in a tournament after that point, those couple after that first thing, I'm like, all right, I feel good, I feel comfortable, and I feel that I'm going to beat at least one person here, and it's going to be him. I hate to put it that way, but really it was. It was really that way. Man. I'm going to just go for one more, and I'm going to use this last one somewhere else. I think there's a better place for it. Now, here comes the final story that I want to talk to you about that just gives me warm feelings, and just, I enjoy it so much. It goes back a couple of years. It starts with NFC Championship game where the 49ers played the Eagles in 2022. 2022 season. Brock Purdy is a surprise Mr. Irrelevant who goes through and just takes the NFL by storm. But in that game, he goes and plays the NFC Championship game against the Eagles. And in the first drive, he tears his UCL in his elbow and ends up needing Tommy John surgery. And in that game, he physically couldn't throw the football. His elbow would not respond because the ligament wouldn't allow him to do it. Now, in that game, the Eagles just routed the 49ers because there was no offense. The quarterback physically couldn't throw the ball. And the Eagles enjoyed their victory and just played it off as they were just that great. Truth was, a healthy Brock Purdy would have beaten that Eagles team. And I swore up and down that that's what it was. Turns out the Eagles got beaten by the Chiefs. And as they say, I got some taste of revenge on that. But not as good as what happened the next season. Because the Eagles were slated to play the 49ers, and the Eagles and all their fans were convinced that, well, we beat the 49ers once, we're going to beat them again. Well, it turns out that after really watching the Eagles play very closely and listening to a lot of the commentators, Shannon Sharpe in particular, my guy Shannon Sharpe, he saw what I saw. And then I really paid attention to what he was talking about. And then I really appreciated what I was looking at because he gave me a more clear and concise reason for what I saw. What I saw was that Eagles team was vulnerable. They were winning games very closely against certain teams, but they were vulnerable. I could tell. I could see it. They were 8-3, or was it? What was their record at that point in time? They were 10-1, and the 49ers were 8-3. Christian McCaffrey was just blowing people up. Brock Purdy had his weapons: Kittle, Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel. The defense was as good as it could be. But this time, the difference between the NFC Championship and this game was Brock Purdy was healthy. And it turned out so horrible for the Eagles. If you pay attention to what happened after that game, you will really appreciate how bad it went for the Eagles. The Eagles were 10-1. They were the best team in football now. The 49ers beat them. And they fell apart. They went from being the best team in the NFL to making it to the wild card. And they lost in the first round. The 49ers that year went on to go to the Super Bowl. But the thing that I loved about that and just really enjoyed was the fact that I was right. If Brock Purdy was healthy, the Eagles could not beat them. They couldn't. They just couldn't. Now, I don't know what happened to them this year because the 49ers were decimated. But there was one difference. The one player they had was still Brock Purdy. And he made the difference for why they beat them in the playoffs this year, too. That's what just makes me warm and fuzzy thinking about Brock really is the guy. I don't know when he's going to break through and win a Super Bowl, the sixth one for the 49ers. 6. But I think he's going to do it. It's just a matter of when. Not if, but when. And that just gives me a great deal of excitement. I love them 49ers. I'm definitely one of the faithful. And on that note, I'm going to ring the bell and I'm going to call the end of the main event. Now, this is the end of my football picks, and I'm going to go through it very quickly. I had Seattle winning against the Patriots. What I picked. And I can honestly say I am super sick because not only did I pick the game right, I was within the point scale. The score was 13-29. I picked it 28-14. The Patriots got one more point. I said the Patriots were going to get 14. And the Seahawks, chickens, chumps, Seahawks, hate them. They got 28. I hate the Seahawks. And that's the end of that. So needless to say, the spear of the week is the Seahawks with their stolen Super Bowl championship, in my opinion. But that's okay. Just like I told the Eagles fans. Seahawks fans, talk to me when you win 3. When you win 3. I'm not asking a lot. You just gotta win one more now. And you'll still be too behind the 49ers. Just win one more. That's all I ask. Hate the Seahawks. Hate them. Alright. Now that I'm not over that mentally, but it's close. I'm gonna now do the excuse me. The new segment. I've got 3 things, and I'm going to try to see if I can guess what they have in common. Play along with me if you'd like. The 3 things that I have here that are, something similar to them, there's something that's connecting them, are hmm, I think I'll do this one because I'm really not sure at all. Hmm. A walk? No, 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 we're not gonna do that. This one's easy. I can get this one. I know I've got this. The three things are BJ, Amy, Baby Bob. BJ, Amy, and Baby Bob. I'm kind of cheating on this one. I saw one down there that looked like it was real hard, and I chose not to do it. But I'm going BJ, Amy, and Baby Bob. What do these three things have in common? The answer is real obvious to me. And if you're of a certain age, you would certainly know the answer to that. And if you're older, say my age, the answer makes you a little nauseous. The answer, without even me thinking about it, is I'm not even going to look at it yet, but there's no doubt that these three characters are in the Barney series. Yeah. Mm-hmm. BJ, Amy, um, and Baby Bop were all three characters from the Barney series. No question. Now, the one that I thought was really hard was a 3.5-inch computer disc, a beagle's ear, the scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, a 3.5 computer disc, a beagle's ear, and the scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. Hmm. Beagle's ear, scarecrow, Wizard of Oz, 3.5-inch. I think I got it. I think I got it. Computer disc, those old floppy disks, had a hole in the center. They're empty in the middle. The scarecrow had no brain, so he was empty in the middle. And I can only imagine that a beagle's ear, because it's open, it's empty in the middle. I'm thinking that it's all three are something, they're empty in the middle. You gotta be kidding me. I was stupid about that. Mm-mm-mm. Now, 3.5 computer disk, if you're of a certain age, you would know that those were called floppy disks. Beagle's ear, floppy. And the scarecrow, when he was sitting there and loose, he didn't have any balance or well, he just moved around. He was floppy too. So all three were floppy. Knew that was hard. But I got the baby bop one right because boy, my cousins didn't watch Barney enough. I would never get that horrible music out of my head. But that's what it is. But now it's time to shut down the show. Um, of course, you can always check me out at um, Instagram at Phil Henderson 5102. Join us on the Lip Facebook group. Join us. There's always room for one more. Try to get over 100. Maybe you'll be that person. Join us. And of course, like and subscribe to this channel at Phil the Lip. Now, it's time for the words of wisdom. And the words of wisdom are real simple at this point in time. Breathe in, breathe out. Besides the people you love, find something you love to do. Besides the people you love, find something you love to do. And that's all I got for you.
That was easy.
My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip.